No marks of injury.
Just 4 large stones in each pocket in the topcoat.
And a last note of madness that could fit.
You sure about madness?
Well, aren't you?
He was diabolical and cunning.
Shrewd and mad, it has been known.
Cool enough to kill twice in one night.
Bold-faced enough to kill 5 times in 10 weeks. Let's call the roll again. Nichols.
Mary Ann, otherwise known as Polly.
Killed 31st of August, between 3:50 and 3:45. Throat cut, body ripped open. Chapman.
Dark Annie.
8th of September, approximately 5:30 a.m. Throat cut, body disemboweled, uterus removed. Stride.
Elizabeth, Long Liz.
30th of September, approximately 1 a.m. Throat cut.
Catherine Eddowes, killed about an hour later the same night. Body ripped open, left kidney removed.
And Kelly?
Mary Jane.
9th of November, sometime in the small hours of the morning. Body cut to pieces and scattered round the room. He must have been mad.
An exhibitionist who boasted about his murders?
A mad sense of humor.
Sick, anyway.
And skilled with it. Skilled enough to kill, rip open a woman and remove chunks of her body, all in 14 minutes.
A working knowledge of anatomy.
Aye.
But not necessarily a doctor.
Not necessarily.
The Sunday Times Herald of Chicago was sure he was a doctor. And they were sure as long ago as 1895, just 7 years after the murder of Kelly.
And who told them?
A Dr. Howard, and a London clubman now in Chicago.
The story Dr. Howard has told is substantially correct, as indeed it should be, since Dr. Howard was one of a dozen London physicians who sat at a court of medical inquiry or as a commission in lunacy on one of their brother physicians. But it was definitely proved that the dreadful Jack the Ripper was no less a person than a physician in high standing, a man enjoying the patronage of the best society in the West End of London. But all parties knowing the facts were sworn to secrecy. Until the time of Dr. Howard's disclosure, this oath had been rigidly adhered to. The circumstances which led to the detection of this inhuman monster with a dual nature are extraordinary and altogether unparalleled in the history of crime. Robert James Lees is the person entitled to the credit of tracking down Jack the Ripper. In his early years, Mr. Lees developed an extraordinary clairvoyant power. One day, he was writing in his study when he suddenly became convinced that the Ripper was about to commit another murder. The whole scene arose before him. He seemed to see 2 persons, a man and a woman, walking down the length of a main street. The woman was half drunk. She leaned against a wall, and the man put one hand over her mouth. She struggled in a feeble manner, but the man drew a knife from his inside pocket and cut the woman's throat. He held his hand over her mouth until she fell to the ground. Then he inflicted several gashes on her with his knife and laid certain organs beside the body of his victim, after which he calmly walked away. Well, so impressed was Mr. Lees with what he had witnessed that he went to Scotland Yard. There, however, they regarded him as little short of a lunatic, and he naturally received little attention. However, on the following night, just such a murder was committed. Some time went by, and Mr. Lees was dining with friends, and he suddenly turned to his two companions and exclaimed, "Jack the Ripper has committed another murder." He and his companions went at once to Scotland Yard. The news of the murder had not yet reached there, but while he was relating his story, a telegram arrived giving full details of the outrage. Well, by now, the police were convinced of Mr. Lee's powers. After an earnest appeal from one of the inspectors, Mr. Lees agreed to try and track the Ripper, much in the same way as a bloodhound pursues a criminal. All that night, Mr. Lees submitted to this strange influence and traversed swiftly the streets of London. The inspector and his men followed behind. At last, at 4 o'clock in the morning, with pale face and bloodshot eyes, the human bloodhound halted before the gates of a West End mansion. Gasping, with cracked and swollen lips, as he pointed to an upper chamber where a faint light gleamed. "There is the murderer, the man you are looking for." "That's impossible," answered the inspector. "That is the residence of one of the most famous physicians in the West End." But when they questioned the doctor's wife, she confessed she did not believe her husband was of sound mind. There had been moments when he'd threatened herself and her children. At such moments, she was accustomed to lock herself up. Within an hour, the inspector had summoned to his aid two of the greatest experts on insanity in the metropolis. When accused, the doctor admitted that his mind had been unbalanced for years, and that of late there had been intervals of time when he had no recollection of what he'd been doing. In one instance, he'd found blood upon his shirt front, which he attributed to a nosebleed. On another occasion, his face had been all scratched up. An exhaustive inquiry before the Commission in Lunacy developed the fact that while in one mood the doctor was a most worthy man, in the other he was a terrible monster. He was at once removed to a private asylum in Islington, and he is now the most dangerous and intractable madman confined in that establishment. In order to account for his disappearance, a sham death and burial were gone through, and an empty coffin, which now reposes in the family vaults at Kensal Green, is supposed to contain the mortal remains of a famous West End physician whose untimely death all London mourned. None of the keepers know that the desperate maniac who flings himself from side to side in his padded cell and makes the long watches of the night hideous with his piercing cries is the famous Jack the Ripper. To them and to the visiting inspectors, he is simply known as Thomas Mason, alias number 124.
A singular Mason?
I'm not running that horse yet.
You should never have entered that one either.
Like to bet on one of Inspector Aberline's favourites?
Well, he was directly involved with the case.
So take a look.
Hey, I know that face, don't I? Does he belong in this case?
Inspector Aberline thought he did. When one of his colleagues brought him in, Inspector Aberline is supposed to have said, "I see you've got Jack the Ripper at last."
Aberline knew his Whitechapel. If he thought that was Jack the Ripper, why didn't he just pull him in?
I assume he couldn't get a case that would stand up in court.
Can you?
I'll have a go. The case against Severin Klasowski, alias Jack the Ripper.
Court's in session.
The Ripper murders began in August 1888. In that same year, Severin Klusowski arrived in England from Warsaw, and he worked as a barber's assistant in Whitechapel. Now, the murders were committed by a man with definite anatomical knowledge. Severin Klusowski had been trained in Poland and with the Russian army as a feldsher. That's an unqualified barber's surgeon come doctor's assistant. And barber surgeons did minor surgery.
Not mass murder.
The murders in England stopped in November 1888. Severin Klusowski left this country around 1889-1890 and went to America. But there were reports of Ripper-style murders in New Jersey, where he lived during the 2 years that he was there. They were said to have stopped in 1893. And in that year, Severin Klusowski left the United States and came back to England. He turns up in Hastings, but this time he's not called Klusowski. He's running a barber's shop, and he's called...
Chapman, George Chapman.
I thought you'd get it. And also there's a Mrs. Chapman, who plays the piano to the customers while her husband does the short back and sides. This apparently is good for business. So good that they sell the barber's shop. And they buy a lease on a pub called the Prince of Wales in Bartholomew Square, just off the City Road. Now, up till now, Mrs. Chapman, apart from hitting the bottle from time to time, has always enjoyed good health. But suddenly, she begins to suffer from very nasty pains in the stomach. The doctor's called in and prescribes medicines. But it is Chapman who, as you remember, has had some sort of doctor's training, who doles the medicine out, and Mrs. Chapman doesn't get any better. In fact, Christmas Day, 1897, Mrs. Chapman dies. A few months later, Chapman advertises for a young lady to help him in the pub. A girl called Bessie Taylor gets the job. A short while after that, Chapman and Bessie Taylor announce that they've got married. A bit later, the second Mrs. Chapman starts to get pains in the stomach too. And pretty soon, she's dead as well. Chapman, who has by now changed pubs as well and is running the Monument Tavern in Union Street, gets another barmaid, Maud Marsh. They get married. And by October, she's dead too, after the usual pains in the stomach. But, unfortunately for Chapman, though, Maud's parents were very worried about their daughter's pains, so they told the doctor about it. 3 days after Maud died, the police went to see Chapman. And when they searched his rooms, they found some very interesting white powders and some papers which revealed that George Chapman's real name was Severin Klusowski, formerly a barber's assistant in Whitechapel in 1888. And when they brought him in, Inspector Aberlin apparently said, "I see you've got Jack the Ripper at last."
Well, if that's true, he must have killed at least 8 women.
Well, the time fits. And the bit about some medical knowledge fits. And the description, for what it's worth, fits. And there's another connection. A macabre sense of humour.
Which Chapman had too.
Chapman's second wife and victim, Bessie, was buried in Lymm, in Cheshire. And on her grave, Chapman put this verse. "Farewell, my friends, fond and dear. Weep not for me a single tear. For all that was and could be done, you plainly see, my time was come."
Very droll. Is that your case?
It's my case.
Dismissed, I'd say.
Why?
Well, I don't see why a man who killed 5 women with a knife should turn to poison 10 years later.
Wanted to change?
He was hanged in...
1902.
How old was he then?
37.
So at the time of the Ripper murders, he must have been 23, too young.
I don't see...
Remember the eyewitnesses. Take P.C. Smith. The man he saw talking to Longley's Stride 20 minutes before she was killed.
Did you look at the man at all?
Yes.
What did you notice about him?
He had a parcel wrapped in a newspaper in his hand. The parcel was about 18 inches long by about 6 to 8 inches broad.
Did you notice his height?
He was about 5'7".
And what about his hat?
He had a dark felt deerstalker hat.
Did you overhear any conversation?
No.
Did you see the man's face?
He had no whiskers, but I did not notice him much. I should say he was about 28 years of age.
28. And that's the youngest estimate in all the descriptions. Now, at 1:35 a.m., 30th of September, with Catherine Eddowes in Church Passage leading to Mitre Square, where she was found murdered, a man, height 5'7", aged 30. Or the man Hutchinson saw going into Miller's Court with Kelly.
He was about 5 feet 8 inches, 34 or 35 years old.
Now, the descriptions have that much in common. Height, about 5'7", aged about 30. Now, you can mistake a man of 30 for 34 or for 28, but not for a man of 23.
A dark, heavy-set man. He could have looked in his 30s when he was only 23. I bet you did.
Case dismissed. You're not still...
No. On George Chapman Klosowski, I'll concede. But that could still be a picture of Jack the Ripper.
How?
Inspector Aberline never wrote a line about the murders, but a friend of his, a Dr. Dutton, did. He was a keen criminologist, and he filled notebooks with stuff about the Ripper murders. And according to Dutton, Aberline changed his mind about Klosowski being the Ripper.
Aberline had long suspected that Klosowski was the Ripper, and discussed the matter with me on many occasions. His original reasons for taking this view were that Klosowski had allegedly been seen with one of the Ripper's victims on the night of the murder. But what finally convinced Aberline that he'd made a mistake in thinking that Klosowski was the Ripper was his discovery that the Polish barber surgeon had a double in London. This double, a Russian, and also a barber surgeon, sometimes posed as Klosowski, for reasons which were not apparent. It was the Russian surgeon, not Klosowski, who was seen with the Ripper victim.
The reasons are not apparent to Dr. Dutton or to me.
If that were all, you could say it was just a daft theory.
I do.
Dr. Dutton made these notes based on conversations with Inspector Aberline. But about the same time, and quite independently, the novelist William Le Queux, who was a British agent during the First World War, is given some of Rasputin's papers by the Russians. And according to Le Queux, Rasputin had something to say about Jack the Ripper, too.
Rasputin?
Yeah, the mad monk.
I know who Rasputin is. What's he doing in this?
William Le Queux, best-selling novelist and former secret agent, reveals all.
I personally was told the identity of Jack the Ripper by a Russian anarchist living in London, a member of an anarchist club in the East End. He told me the murders were committed by a Russian called Pedachenko, who lived in Westmoreland Road, Walworth. I then discovered the following passage in Rasputin's manuscript. The report of the murders amused our secret police greatly, for as a matter of fact, they knew the whole details all the time and had themselves actively aided and encouraged the crimes in order to demonstrate to the world certain defects of the English police system, there having been some misunderstanding and rivalry between our own police and the British. It was for that reason that Pedachenko, the greatest and boldest of all Russian criminal lunatics, was encouraged to go to London and commit that series of atrocious crimes in which our agents of police aided him. Eventually, at the orders of the Ministry of the Interior, the secret police smuggled the assassin out of London. He landed at Ostend and was conducted by a secret agent to Moscow. While he was there, he was, a few months later, caught red-handed trying to murder and mutilate a woman. Eventually, he was sent to an asylum where he died in 1908. Such are the actual facts of the Jack the Ripper mystery, which still puzzles the whole world.
Facts.
He was a best-selling novelist.
Fiction.
That's what makes it odd. Dr. Dutton read that story in Le Queux's Things I Know and decided that they were both talking about the same man.
It's a great pity that Le Queux did not follow up what is a useful clue. Further examination might have shown that Pedachenko was Klosowski's double, A witness at the time of the murders told Abilene that he should look for a Russian who lived somewhere in Walworth and attended barber shops to cut warts and moles. He said he'd seen this Russian in Commercial Street on the night of the Berner Street murder. What LeCue should have found out was that Pedachenko worked as a barber surgeon for a hairdresser named Del Hay in Westmoreland Road, Walworth, in 1888.
Fantasy. Mad Russians, anarchists.
The London Post Office Directory, 1888, Westmoreland Road, Walworth. Del Hay, William, hairdresser. And Dr. Dutton has another witness up his sleeve.
I learned from a Dr. Williams who lived in Camberwell and attended St. Saviour's Infirmary in Walworth that a Russian barber surgeon attended him occasionally. Dr. Williams understood that he had degrees as a junior surgeon in Russia and was qualified rather more than a skilled midwife, rather less than the average English GP. This man's name was Pedachenko. It appeared that Pedachenko lived in the vicinity, though Dr. Williams could not say where. He also believed that he worked as a barber surgeon at various establishments in the south of London. He was of medium height, with a dark moustache, sometimes side whiskers, and well-dressed in a rather formal style.
Medical Register, 1888-89, John Frederick Williams, St. Saviour's Infirmary, Walworth, and an address in Camberwell.
You've proved that a hairdresser called Del Hay existed. You've proved that a Dr. Williams existed. But you haven't proved that a man Pedachenko worked for them. I mean, apart from the fact of LeCue allegedly quoting Rasputin, you haven't proved that this man Pedachenko even existed.
Another Russian witness, not an anarchist, but an aristocrat, Prince Belaselsky.
Oh, the names.
The prince got hold of an issue of the Okhrana Gazette, the confidential bulletin of the Tsar's secret police.
Pedachenko, Alexei, formerly of Tver, is now officially declared to be dead. Any files or information concerning him should be sent to Moscow Central District. If documents held by you do not contain any of his names or aliases, they should also be examined for any information concerning a man answering to the description of the above, who was wanted for the murder of a woman in Paris in 1886 and the murder of 5 women in the East Quarter of London in 1888. Description: height, medium, usually wore black moustache, curled at ends, broad-shouldered but slight build. Age, 31.
Description fits. The age is about right.
There's another bit at the end.
Known to disguise himself as a woman on occasions, and was arrested in women's clothes in Petrograd before his detention in the asylum where he died.
What are you on about now?
The inquest on Mary Kelly. Remember the evidence of Mrs. Maxwell?
Which you said didn't fit.
The coroner was a bit rough on her, but he couldn't make her change her story.
You must be very careful about your evidence because it is different to other people's. You say you saw her standing at the corner of the entry to the court.
Yes, on Friday morning from 8 to 8:30.
By that time, Mary Kelly was dead.